Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Star Control 2. This is part 24. I'm about to speak to Mr. Trademaster Greenish right there, who I'm pointing at. Because we've got so many credits in the last part, we should be able to get the rest of the information. Let's speak to him.
Welcome back, Captain. You are our favorite customer. Now, what can we do for you today?
I would like to make some purchases.
What trade items would you like to buy today?
I'd like to buy information.
How wonderful, Captain.
I want to pay for use of data on alien races.
The Burbixies race evolved on the planet Ur-Quan. They lived there in a relatively benevolent manner until the Korra came and destroyed them during the course of 2 or 3 unfortunate days. The Druge were largely responsible for the Korra finding the Burbixies. You see, the Burbixies were in long-distance, hyperwave contact with a race known simply as the Keg. For decades, the Keg and the Burbixies traded much valuable information until the Keg came under attack by an invading race who you may know as the Korra. The Keg warned the Burbixies that the Korra located races by their hyperwave transmissions and that they had already discovered the radiations from the Druge. When the Burbixies were kind enough to warn the Druge that a hostile alien race was homing in on their hyperwave radiations, the Druge shut down all their transmitters and erected a powerful hyperwave beacon on the surface of the Burbixies moon. The Korra changed course, attacked the poor Burbixies, and sadly destroyed them all.
Bastards! I'll pay for useful information on alien races.
The Thredash are an arrogant, stubborn, and thick-skinned species who reside in the Draconis and Apodus star systems. They have little or no respect for anything but force, which they admire greatly. To make the Thredash your friends, you should consider killing most, but not all of them. In addition, they guard some kind of sacred relic at the star system Zeta Draconis, though we do not know the true nature of this artifact. The Thredash homeworld is at Delta Draconis.
More information on alien races, please.
After the war, the Chenjesku and the Mernherm chose the slave shielded on the Chenjesu's homeworld at Procyon. We suspect that they are melding their two species to form some kind of new hybrid race, a race which may well be powerful enough to destroy the Ur-Quan single-handedly. However, by our calculations, this process will take many decades, if not centuries. Should you wish to talk to them, we recommend you invest in a hyperwave broadcasting system, which is powerful enough to penetrate the shield around their world.
Ooh, we've got one. More information, please.
The Mycon are using this time, while the Ur-Quan have their attention elsewhere, to expand their sphere of influence as fast as possible. The Mycon colonize planets by launching tough spore pods from orbit and injecting them under the planet's surface. Months later, after the spores have grown hundreds of thick, fibrous tendrils under the planet's crust, the tendrils suddenly thrust up out of the planet and create huge calderas. Not incidentally, filling the planet's atmosphere with the Mycon's preferred gases, clouds of superheated steam and sulfuric acid.
Ooh, that sounds very similar to what happened to the Cyrene. We'll have to go investigate that.
Following the end of the war, the Androsynth began experimenting with interdimensional fatigue, a process which is related to your faster-than-light drive, but involves dimensions far more alien than hyperspace. They had just made a major breakthrough when they were suddenly wiped out by a race called the Ors, who appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Actually, we don't know what the Ors did to the Androsynth. They're just all gone.
Pop! Gone.
The Arilulale are a mysterious race of IDF beings. IDF meaning interdimensional fatigue. They do not reside in this galaxy, or in fact, anywhere in this universe. While it is true that the Arilu are rarely seen far from the Colombe star group, they do make regular, secret visits to your world, and have done so for centuries. Ever since Earth was stage-shielded, they have focused their attention on the humans aboard the starbase, many of whom are now members of your crew. Though the Arilulale always smile and are never overtly hostile, we believe that they have a secret agenda which somehow involves your planet, Earth. These secret plans may or may not cause grief and woe to you Earthlings.
More information, please.
Just under 20 years ago, the brave and suicidal Shofixti annihilated their species by exploding a precursor device, some kind of bomb, in the interior of their sun. The resulting storm of solar flares cooked the life off the Shofixti homeworld, and incinerated over 100 Ur-Quan dreadnoughts which had just entered the system to conquer the Shofixti. In actuality, there are still at least a dozen Shofixti left alive in the galaxy. 1 or 2 are at Delta Gorno, guarding the dead hulk of their once beautiful world. Others can be found in Vox space.
We haven't discovered them yet.
The Slilandro are a mostly non-solid, sentient race who live in a gas giant at Beta Corvi. We recently sold them a self-replicating exploration probe, which has somehow turned hostile and attacks everything it detects. If such encounters have angered you, Captain, please do not address your concerns to us. We possess a formal waiver of damages authorized by a Slilandro speaker and are in no way responsible for the situation.
They haven't angered me at all. They give me lots and lots of resources.
The cowardly Spathi live at the single planet orbiting Epsilon Grus.
Not anymore.
They do not actually live on their world, rather they reside on its airless moon. The reason? A xenomorphic species which craves the sweet-flavored flesh of the Spathi has been transported to the surface of their planet and makes every attempt to devour the poor Spathi. I am certain that the Spathi would be forever in your debt if you were to eliminate these creatures from their planet. What? You fear the alien creatures will find you a treat also? Fear not. Our data reveals the beasts are not interested in your species. Should you wish to consult with the Spaffy Ruling Council, you will need to know the secret Spaffy cipher. A
Huffy,
password,
Muffy,
which
Guffy.
is Huffy, Muffy, Guffy. Like you Earthlings, when the war with the Ur-Quan was lost, the Cyrene chose to be slave-shielded. Their new world is at Betelgeuse. The Cyrene starbase is crewed by the starship commanders and crew who were decommissioned at the end of the war. Though the Cyrene hate the Ur-Quan with a vengeance, they are unlikely to offer you assistance unless you reveal to them the truth behind the tragedy of their original homeworld, Syra, which was destroyed by the birth of a Mycon Deep child a century ago.
Okay, we need to get some proof. Get a new ally.
When the Ur-Quan entered Gamma Serpentis, the home star of the Yehat, their queen made a sudden change of allegiance and allied with the Ur-Quan hierarchy. They became Ur-Quan combat thralls.
No!
This act was viewed by most Yehat starship officers as ultimately dishonorable, the desperate act of a corrupt regent to maintain her throne. The Yehat shame was greatly magnified by the Shofixti's show of courage when they destroyed their own star system to slow down the Ur-Quan armada. Captain, you have heard all that we have to say about aliens indigenous to this region. Should we learn more in the near future, we shall be certain to sell it to you.
Okay. Please tell us historical information.
Almost 25,000 of your years ago, there existed near this region of space an association of star-faring races called the Sentient Milieu. This group formed over several thousand years to mutually enrich their respective cultures, to provide a safe creche for emerging sentient species, and to afford themselves a degree of protection from external hostilities via military alliance. Of the 7 most active milieu members, the most famous race, indeed, you know them well, Captain, were the Ur-Quan.
Oh, these guys are old.
The Ur-Quan evolved on a harsh planet, orbiting a star outside this region of space. They were solitary predators, like your praying mantis captain, or polar bear, who had a very limited set of social behaviors, most of which dealt with sex. Since they had to compete for survival against many physically superior species, the Ur-Quan evolved intelligence and tool use in much the same way as your own species. The Ur-Quan also learned to master their fierce territoriality, to build a cooperative planetary culture. When the Ur-Quan were discovered by the Taelo, they had just begun exploring their solar system in crude atomic vehicles. Although the Ur-Quan attacked what they thought to be an invader, the Taelo were patient. They explained the purpose of the sentient milieu and offered the Ur-Quan membership. The Ur-Quan recognized the benefits that such a system provided, and once more conquered the hunting beast within themselves. To become cooperative, productive members of the milieu, this lasted for several thousands of years. Just over 20,000 years ago, when your ancestors were learning to chart the course of the moon and stars, on animal horns. The sentient milieu spanned 500 light years and included the membership of 100 worlds. Like all other star travelers, they had discovered ruins and relics of a far more ancient culture, which your species calls the precursors. Explorers from many species spent their lives trying to piece together this ancient mystery, but of all races, the Ur-Quan were the most bold adventurers. Their scouts, flying single ships, penetrated far into uncharted space and landed a million worlds. On one such mission, a young Ur-Quan made planetfall on a small, life-bearing alien world to identify some anomalous energy readings, occasionally a sign of precursor installations. Instead, the Ur-Quan found a small, hideous creature, a Dinyari. Before the scout was able to defend itself, the Dinyari creature took control of the Ur-Quan's mind and commanded the scout to place the Dinyari aboard the Ur-Quan's ship, along with hundreds of its evil brood. Then the Ur-Quan returned to the heart of the milieu, landing on its capital planet. Within hours, every resident of the planet was a Dinyari slave. Within a month, Dinyari compelled starships and spread the evil, psychic creatures across the entire milieu.
Wow, sucked to be them.
When the Dinyari took control over the milieu, one race fought back, the Ta'eo. These slow, quiet creatures were silicon-based life forms, but bore little resemblance to the modern Chenjesu. Ta'eo were natural immunes to the Dinyari's psychic compulsion. They were unaffected by the creature's power, and the Dinyari would not permit anyone to exist outside their control. So they ordered the remaining races of the milieu to attack and destroy the Ta'eo home planet. This planet was one of the few milieu worlds located in this region of space. I believe you call their star Delta Vulpeculae.
Oh, that's pretty close.
Their home was a moon revolving about the second planet. I'm sad to say that the Ta'eo were indeed eliminated. However, at the time of their devastation, they had completed a device which they thought would give other races psychic immunity like their own. What happened to this device, this shield? It's hard to say. Maybe it was destroyed in the attack on their homeworld. Maybe not. In the Dinyari's new empire, the Ur-Quan were the favored slaves. This is probably because the Ur-Quan were the most psychically sensitive, the most easily compelled. As the centuries of Dinyari dominance passed, what was once the sentient milieu deteriorated and degenerated into a great galactic gulag. Alien races which did not serve with the efficiency and speed demanded by the Dinyari were ruthlessly burned from the faces of their worlds. The agents of this genocide were inevitably the Dinyari's favored pet, the Ur-Quan. After almost 2,500 years of unrelenting Dinyari control, there were only 4 living member races of the once great sentient milieu. By this point, the Dinyari had used genetic manipulation to split the Ur-Quan into two subspecies. The green Ur-Quan. Scientists, technicians, and administrators who were responsible for maintaining the limited infrastructure of the Dinyari civilization, and the black Ur-Quan, who filled the ranks of basic laborer and combat soldier. Then, a chance discovery by an Ur-Quan named Kazerza led to the violent overthrow of the Dinyari slave empire.
Okay then. More information, please.
The Ur-Quan named Kazerza was a green, a researcher specializing in repairing the mental damage inflicted by long-term exposure to the Dinyari's psychic compulsion. By this point in history, the Dinyari had grown lax in their dominance, and on occasion accidentally permitted their slaves moments of self-direction. Kazerza was able to use those few scattered minutes to compose a theory. From its observations, Kazerza realized that when a slave died, the Dinyari disconnected from the slave's mind, lest it too be dragged down to death. Further, the Ur-Quan scientist uncovered the fact that when a slave underwent great pain, the Dinyari temporarily disconnected, but that the degree of pain had to be extreme, nearly lethal. Kazerza chose its moment carefully. It waited until it was near an open transmission unit. Then, in a short moment of mental freedom, the Ur-Quan injected itself with a dose of acidic poison, sending incredible waves of pain through its long body. In the few moments before its death, Kazerza was able to wrest control of the transmitter to send word of its discovery across the planet and into space as well. Before the Dinyari knew what was happening, Ur-Quan everywhere were hacking at their own bodies with chunks of glass, burning themselves horribly, doing anything that would give them the few seconds of freedom necessary to find the nearest Dinyari and crush the bleeding creature. As they gained longer and longer periods of control, the Ur-Quan developed new tools and weapons to destroy their evil masters. The most gruesome of these devices was the excruciator, a mechanism which was inserted directly into the brain and generated a constant stream of agony. The Dinyari could not bring themselves to make the necessary mental connection with these tortured Ur-Quan. They were slaughtered by the thousands. The Ur-Quan slave revolt was won.
Yay! More information, please.
When the last Ur-Quan was free of psychic compulsion, when the last free Dinyari was dead, the combined might of the Ur-Quan starfleets met in orbit above the Dinyari homeworld. They had come together to make two important decisions. First, how to punish the few frightened Dinyari left below on the planet's surface. Second, how to ensure that never again would the Ur-Quan be made slaves. The first decision was made swiftly. the Dinyari would not be allowed to die. That was too kind of fate. Instead, the creatures would be genetically modified into sub-sentience. They would become dumb animals. These low creatures would be further debased by serving the Ur-Quan for all eternity in the most demeaning way the Ur-Quan could imagine, acting as translators, making physical contact with other species, whom the Ur-Quan now considered grossly inferior to themselves and revolting. The second decision, how to ensure their freedom permanently, caused great turmoil.
Ooh, the last bit of information we can afford. Will this be the last piece?
Following the successful Ur-Quan slave revolt, the Ur-Quan met to decide how to ensure their freedom. The Green Ur-Quan, who called themselves the Kazertza in honor of the Ur-Quan who triggered the revolt, wished to establish the path of now and forever, which required that all other sentient species must become slaves of the Ur-Quan or be forever imprisoned beneath an impenetrable force shield. Leading the opposition to this plan was Korra, a charismatic fleet officer. Korra proposed a simpler alternative, the Eternal Doctrine. Simply put, the scheme called for the systematic eradication of all sentient life in the universe, aside from the Ur-Quan. Captain, if these positions seem to you extreme or unwarranted, you must remember that the Ur-Quan had been unwilling slaves for millennia, and that each of them had to remain in agony for years in order to defeat the Dinyari. The followers of Kazertza and Korra were all on the brink of madness, but neither side would submit, and so they fought a bloody civil war.
Well, I can't actually buy any more information.
What else would you like to buy? It has been a pleasure dealing with you, Captain. We look forward to your next visit.
Well, for all that money we had, or credits we had, I wasn't able to finish off Trade Master Greenish, and I accidentally landed on the planet. But I think I'm going to call that it for part 24. Join me next time for part 25. I'll see you then.